Oh, sorry. Welcome back one more time to Another Chance Church. Glad you're here. If it's your first time joining us, it's actually kind of a good one. We're in the middle of a series, being the middle of December, but this is a good one to start with because it's really about the whole core of Christianity. If it is your first time, we've been saying this, but being a new church, we're kind of just starting from the beginning, as if you've never heard anything about Jesus, the Bible, or any of that. We're just kind of teaching and training like you're brand new to the whole thing. So as we go, we're going to get into some deeper topics, and it really feels to me kind of superficial thus far, but that's intentional so that we can kind of bring you along and disciple you and help you to mature in the faith from the get-go. That's just kind of a little insight into why we're doing what we're doing and why it hasn't gotten any deeper yet than it has. It will over time. But let's see, where do I want to go to? A couple of announcements first, I guess. Next week, Christmas Day, we will still be here, 5:30, just like normal. We do have what I think is going to be an exciting conclusion to this December, I lost my word, this December series, that's it, that we've been on. Then the following week on January 1st, New Year's Day, the idea is we're going to start New Year's with a new perspective and a new commitment. And so on New Year's Day, we are not going to have a traditional service. We're not going to have the type of service that we've been having. But instead, we're going to open the floor to your questions. Whatever it is, if you have been outside the faith and never come in and never checked out the church, we want to know what are the questions that are keeping you from coming in and being part of it. If you were part of the church and you left, we want to know what are your questions, what are your concerns that caused you to leave. Whatever it is, I'm not going to say be combative, but if it's a negative, if it's, if the church is so good, then, hey, bring that to us. If you've got, if you're a skeptic, bring us those questions. I welcome that because it's only through finding out where you are and finding out what is a hurdle for you, only through that can I help you to get past that or find out, or maybe somebody else. Maybe you're never going to join up and be part of this, but you want to, try to throw up some roadblocks or lob some grenades. Fine, that's cool. Because that may help somebody else to understand some stuff. So we welcome that. There's no question that scares me. I'm not going to say I have the answer to everything. And it may be one of those situations where you ask a question, I say, you know what, I don't know that. But I'm going to come back next week with some answer. So, we just welcome it. And we are going to stay next week absolutely as long as it takes to field questions and to answer them and to try to not next week on the 1st. Sorry, speaking out of turn a little bit. But that day we're going to stay. We're going to answer questions. We're not going to be in any rush. We're not going to be in any hurry. We want to facilitate. We want to answer your questions. Honestly, the biggest thing is this. Yes, I'm biased. I know things that people outside the faith don't know. I've experienced things that people outside the faith haven't experienced. I want to show that to you. I want to give you as much information as I can so that you can make an educated decision on where you're going to go with it. And if that decision is, I'm not going to go with this, fine. It's not everybody is going to, and I accept that. I don't like it, but I accept it. But I want to eliminate every possible roadblock for you to find a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so I need you to tell me where the roadblocks are so that I can help with that. I really didn't plan on preaching a whole sermon around that. It was just an announcement. But those are the next couple of weeks that we're going to be doing. And so at this point, I am going to ask Micah, my wife, to come and pray for the service. And then we will get into this week's part of the series.
Good afternoon. Dear Lord, thank you for this week that we've had. Thank you for gathering us here today. Please be with all those who are traveling this week for Christmas, and help everyone to enjoy their time with family, celebrating you. Just please be with this service and help us to hear what you need us to hear. Amen.
Okay, so quick recap. We have already had 2 Sundays in December, and we started on that first Sunday talking about the series is about the most important people in the Christmas story. There's a lot of characters that come and go, and they all are important for their own reasons. But like the short list of important people, we started the first week of December talking about Joseph, the father of Jesus, and why it was important for him to be a part of the Christmas story and a part of Jesus' life. Then last week, my wife talked about Mary and who she was and why it was important for her to be part of the Christmas story, and what specifics she brought to the story that no one else really could. And so this week, this week might almost seem like a wrap-up because of who I'm talking about, but it's not. There's still another week after this. But this week we're going to talk about Jesus himself. Who is Jesus? Why was it important for him to be part of the Christmas story? Why could no one else fill that role that he fills in the Christmas story? And then, what does that mean moving forward? So I want to start, and I'm actually going to go out a little out of order with the way I wrote my notes, so forgive me, because it may confuse me a little bit. But we're going to start by looking in Luke chapter 3. And we don't have slides this week. I encourage you to take notes, write it down, double check me later on. Look into this. There's some really fascinating stuff if you're a research-minded type of person that we're going to go through. But starting in Luke chapter 3, beginning in verse 23, there's a genealogy of Jesus connecting him all the way back through Adam, the Son of God, the first created man. This serves as an illustration that Adam and Eve, but an illustration that Adam was handed a perfect world and a perfect existence and failed and messed it up. And what man was supposed to be, because there was no mention of death except if you do the thing I told you not to do, if you eat from this tree. So Adam and Eve were handed a perfect eternal existence with nothing, no hardship, no labor, it was just look after my creation. And they failed. They messed it up because, well, let's just face it, we're humans and we are just not very good at this. And then we go all these generations forward to Jesus, who is handed a totally screwed up world, a totally screwed up existence, a creation that has been just dragged through the mud and twisted out of shape and just so completely just corrupting. And he comes into that with just no chance at success. And he comes into that and lives a perfect, sinless life. And from birth to death and through some ridiculous hardship, he doesn't fail. He passes the test that a man living in a perfect Garden of Eden couldn't pass. It also connects Jesus to his fully human side. I mean, if you've been in church for any real length of time, you've heard, Jesus was fully man and fully God. And it's a little bit of a tough thing to understand, but and hopefully that'll clear up a little bit here, but it's hard to understand. If this guy was God, then how could he really be human? How could he not be kind of cheating the system going through this life as a human, because he's God and, he can do. But he was fully man. He lived every bit as human, as tempted, as frail as we do. So the so the genealogy in Luke serves to say that Jesus was as human as anyone else in the history of mankind. So then you go back to Matthew, and we talked about this one a little bit with Joseph. Matthew begins with a different genealogy of Jesus. This one takes him back to Abraham, the original covenant made with Abraham that you will be my people and you will bless all the nations and you will number like the stars in the sky and the sands, the grains of sand on the beach, and just you will be a huge, uncountable people. And it goes from Abraham, it goes from Abraham forward to David, to King David, who is the third covenant or the third section of the covenant, I guess, because none of them went away. But Abraham was the covenant, you will be my people, or you will be a great people. Moses, just as a little side note, was given a covenant, you will be my people, and if you obey me, I will bless you. If you disobey me, I will punish you. And either way, the world will know that I am God because of my relationship with you and what happens to you through your obedience or disobedience. So then you fast forward to David, and he is given the third covenant, the third part of the covenant, which God tells him, you will always occupy my throne, the throne of Israel. Not David personally, but David's line will always occupy the throne. That's important with this genealogy in Matthew because it ties Jesus to the throne of David and therefore shows his ancestral claim to that everlasting, forever throne that David was promised. Most people would see those two genealogies in the Gospels in the New Testament, and that's what they base their understanding of who Jesus is on. Most people would not realize and don't catch that there is actually a third genealogy, if you will, of Jesus in the Gospels, and that comes in John. In the very first verse of John, and this one is probably my personal favorite, it says, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Then just a little bit later, John asserts that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That last part solidifies that John was talking about Jesus. The Word that was eternal and was with God and was God is the same that came to dwell among us, who was named Jesus. The first part is Jesus' ancestry that connects him to God and connects him as God. In a weird kind of way, it's a genealogy that Jesus is related to himself. But that third genealogy, we talked about the one in Luke is Jesus' claim to be fully man. The one in John is Jesus' claim to be fully God. So this shows us that fully God, fully man, tied to the throne of David, so he is the one that will sit on the throne forever. So that's just kind of a really quick overview and wrap up of, who Jesus is, why we understand that he occupies this place that no other man could have occupied. Throughout the life of Jesus, and to further solidify who he was, there are over 300 prophecies that come straight out of the Old Testament, all that were fulfilled by the life of Jesus. His very birth touched many of these. If you go to Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, it says, all right then, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the virgin will conceive a child. She will give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. Jump forward to Matthew chapter 1, verse 23. Giant check mark there. Look, the virgin will conceive a child. She will give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. In Micah, chapter 5, verse 2 says, "But you, O Bethlehem, Ephrathah," probably mispronounced that, "are only a small village among all the people of Judah. Yet a ruler of Israel, whose origins are in the distant past, will come from you on my behalf." This could, at first glance, be talking about David, but this is written after David, and then it says, whose origins are in the distant past. So that's talking about David. And then it says, Bethlehem, a ruler will come from you with origins in the past. So you jump forward to Matthew chapter 2, verses 1. Let's see, just verse 1. There you have your check mark. Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from the eastern lands arrived. That we're going to touch on later. But you've got this prophecy in Micah from Bethlehem. And then you've got the fulfillment in Matthew. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. In Numbers chapter 24, verse 17, it says, "I see him not here and now. I perceive him, but far in the distant future. A star will rise from Jacob." Then you go forward to Matthew chapter 2, verse 2. The wise men that we cited just a second ago asked Herod, "Where is the newborn king of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we could come to worship him." You go back to Psalm chapter 72, verses 10 and 11. "The western kings of Tarshish and other distant lands will bring him tribute. The eastern kings of Sheba and Seba will bring him gifts. All kings will bow before him, and all nations will serve him." There again, you go back to Matthew chapter 2, verse 11. Those wise men, they entered the house and saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But even the fact that Jesus would be given gifts was prophesied way back then, and then is shown to be true here in Matthew. Jeremiah 31:15. "This is what the Lord says, a cry is heard in Ramah, deep anguish and bitter weeping. Rachel weeps for her children, refusing to be comforted, for her children are gone." Matthew 2:16. "Herod was furious when he realized that the wise men had outwitted him." There's a story behind that, I'll tell you in a minute. "He sent soldiers to kill all boys in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under, based on the wise men's report of the star's first appearance." So when Herod was talking to the wise men, when they came and said, "Where is the king of the Jews?" that really messed with Herod's head, because he was, in a certain way, the local king of the Jews. He was the ruler of that area under Rome, and it's just a big, weird thing. But he saw that as a threat. So he told the wise men, he's trying to play it off and be cool about it. He's like, "Hey, when you find him, tell me where he is so that I can go worship him too." The wise men were kind of given a vision that this guy's not being serious. So when they finished visiting with Jesus, they left by a different path. And that's what it talks about when he was furious about being outwitted. These are just a few of the prophecies that were set forth 500-600 years or more before Jesus' birth, that all suddenly came true and were answered with the birth of Jesus Christ. So the background of Jesus is, well, it's complicated to say the least, because he is an Israelite, a son of Abraham, one of God's chosen people. He is, although far removed from a royal line, a son of David, heir to the throne. He is human like us, a son of man, which, if you look back through Matthew, is one of his favorite terms to use when he's talking about himself, the Son of Man. So he's one of us. But above all, he is God in the flesh. This Jesus, this Word that was with God, that was God eternally, always existing, he laid down his glory, his eternal power, to take on a weak and flawed body like ours. He stepped out of paradise to live a life on this unforgiving little rock. He left an atmosphere of pure praise to him and lived a short life of labor and mediocrity, only to die an agonizing and disgraceful death under false accusations. This perfect God gave up his perfect throne, and for what? For what purpose? Because he had a creation. Because he loved us and we had a need. And he came to fulfill that need, to forgive our sins, to give us an opportunity for a future that we can't have without it. Next week, we're going to look at it. It seems like this is very short, so bonus for you guys. But next week, we're going to look at the fourth person that is so important to the Christmas story. I'll even go so far as to say that the Christmas story wouldn't exist without the last member of our list. We had Joseph, who had to be who he was to connect Jesus to David, to connect Jesus to the throne. We have Mary, who had to be who she was because she connected him to John the Baptist, who was a voice crying out in the wilderness, but also had to be who she was just because no one else would have fulfilled the position that she was throughout Jesus' life. Then, of course, we've got Jesus, who is the perfect God, the perfect sacrifice, the perfect man. And next week, it seems like we pretty well covered all the real important parts. But next week, we're going to talk about, from some perspectives, maybe even the most important person in the Christmas story, and how that all plays together. I appreciate you guys working with me through this and being here for it. We love you guys. If you want to know more, you don't have to wait till next week. If you want to know this Jesus, reach out to us and let us know. And we're happy to talk to you. We're happy to walk you through this and answer your questions. You ain't got to wait until the first of the year to ask us your question. You can come ask them to me. But we're just opening that up so that you have time to sit down and think about what you want to ask and have a list or whatever you want to do. But if now's the time, if you're in that spot now, reach out to us. We would be happy to pray with you, to walk you through how you get a hold of Jesus. And it's not hard. You don't need us, but we're happy to help you with it. All you got to do is cry out. He hears you. He knows. He's always available. There's no magic words. I'm not bagging on any sinner's prayer or anything like that, any preformed prayer that preachers have. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not the words that are magical that trap God into, well, they said the right words, so I have to do it. It's nothing like that. You don't have to be refined and all that because you're broken, because we all are. And when you come to him, you're not ready for him. You're just willing to let him do his work. That's the whole thing. And if you feel like you need somebody to help guide you through that, great. We will absolutely do that. If if you're just in a desperate place, just call out on him and he will be there. But we're here for you. We want to see you. We want to meet you. We want to help walk you through this journey and live this life with you. And all it takes is reaching out. You can find us on the website. You can find us on the Facebook page. We got the YouTube page under Gospel Ranch. However you find us, you will be able to follow that and find email address to get to us, a phone number to get to us, like I said, a Facebook page to get to us. We got an Instagram. We got a Twitter. Anything that we can. We're as far spread as we can get so that we're as available to you as possible. We want to connect with you. That's the only reason that we're spread like that, because I hate technology. I don't want to be here on camera. I don't want to be here doing this. But if that connects us to you, if that gives you an opportunity, then that's where we're going to be. We're doing everything we can to be accessible to you. We love you guys. And even though we don't know you, we're praying for you. We're praying for everybody who sees this program, everybody who needs to see this program. I say that often, but I've never really gone into it. We love you. We don't have to know you to love you because you are God's creation. We are praying for you because we don't have to know that you're there to be praying for you, but we definitely want to connect and we want to see you grow and become more, so we're praying for you. And we don't have to know because he does. but we do want to. It's an encouragement to us to know. So please reach out, connect. Be ready for the first, because I definitely want to hear from you on the first. I want to hear from you every week, and we're looking forward to going forward with this. And we'll talk to you next week.